What is up, fellas? We are back for another UFC predictions video. This time for UFC Fight Night Tampa, Buckley versus Covington. Last card of the year, fellas. Last card of 2024 before we have a month of nothing. So that's real exciting. We have a good card this weekend, though, guys. Some pretty good fights, some pretty good matchups, I think. So let's see if we can't make some US currency. Let's jump right in. Kicking us off at women's straw weight, Josephine Knudsen versus Piera Rodriguez. Um, what a thrill ride to start off the fight card, huh? Josephine Knudsen, pretty decent women's MMA prospect. Very nice kickboxing. She does have a little bit of grappling, but nothing insane. Pretty mediocre, if you ask me. Kind of a decision merchant, taking on Piera Rodriguez, who I think is actually kind of being undersold by the betting line in this matchup. I actually think Piera Rodriguez is pretty good. She's definitely pretty dangerous. In her last fight, I had picked her to beat Carnelossi. I believe that was her last fight, right? Yeah, and she got DQ'd, but she was beating the absolute dog shit out of Carnelossi, absolutely destroying her. I think she dropped her with like a front kick or something. So I think it was a front kick to the face. I don't remember correctly because I didn't want to watch that fight again because that fight pissed me off live. But she got disqualified after knocking her down and then getting on top and landing like a little headbutt on her, and Carnelossi simply quit. But I can't blame her. It's a free win in a fight you were getting your fucking ass beat. But I think Piera Rodriguez is actually not that bad. She should be 10-1 if she wasn't stupid. And her only loss would be to Jillian Robertson, which I kind of think Jillian Robertson would beat a Josephine Knudsen, to be honest, as well. So I really can't read into that too much. When you break down this fight, really, it's kind of like, do you think Piera Rodriguez, I'm going to open up her profile again to illustrate my point here. Do you think Piera Rodriguez, because she is a finisher, do you think she gets it done on the feet? Because I don't see her winning a decision over Knudsen because she is kind of a decision machine. That's my problem. For me, I think Rodriguez is kind of TKO or bust here. I think she does have the power to hurt Knudsen on the feet. I don't know if she has the skill to really find the shot to do it, though, because Knudsen's pretty elusive with her kicks. She likes to keep a good distance. It keeps range very well. She can get closed down, but I don't know if Rodriguez is going to do it. But I do think this line is a little bit wide. But I am going to lean Josephine Knudsen here in this matchup, just being the sharper kickboxer. I think she's going to be a little bit smaller in the octagon as well. Yeah, it says they're both 5'3". It's just, I think Knudsen's a little bit smaller just based on looking at them in their respective fights. Piera Rodriguez is also going to enjoy 3.5 inches of reach. But I think Knudsen's just a little bit more polished of a striker. And I think she can keep Rodriguez out at space for long enough to win at least 2 rounds here. I don't think Rodriguez finishes her on the feet or with ground and pound. I don't think she knocks her down. I could be wrong though. She does have a takedown as well, but I trust Knudsen's takedown defense. Um, I haven't gotten reason to not at this point. Um, or at least I don't think he'll be exposed by Piera Rodriguez. You know what I mean? So I think I'm gonna go with Josephine Knudsen here, just squeaking out a decision over Piera Rodriguez. I think this fight will be closer than a lot of people are saying it will be. Um, but yeah, I think she can eke out a decision, maybe a split. Honestly, maybe a split decision. Um, yeah, we'll see. Ooh, moving up to bantamweight, Davy Grant taking on Ramon Taveras. This is a tricky one because Davy Grant is a hard guy to pick fights on because he's very good, but he also gets brutally robbed a lot in fights that he should probably win. Like Daniel Marcos and Adrian Yanez, respectively, I kind of don't agree with those two decisions that much. And this is coming from a guy who I definitely picked Daniel Marcos against Davy Grant. I actually think I picked Davy Grant against Adrian Yanez, and I was pissed when he got robbed. Um, yeah, so it's hard because he's really good, I think. Subbed Rafaela Sunsao, that's a good win. Luis Smolka's a bum. I don't really care about that win. And then Cheeto Vera, Cheeto Vera's decent. Um, he's got really good skills, man. But my big hang up with Davy Grant is I'm unsure of how he's gonna look in this fight because it's been well over a year since he's fought. and he's 38 years old at a very lightweight class. For me, kind of like 36 is kind of like where I'm like questioning a guy at like a lighter weight class, which is like lightweight and under. I just there's gonna be a point where Davy Grant isn't gonna look like Davy Grant and his skill set isn't gonna be operating at the highest level like it used to. And I'm picking this fight off off the premises that he might look washed a little bit on the feet. Um, because it's been a while. He's not getting any younger. And I question, as a guy who's kind of been slightly robbed in two of his like last four fights, how much motivation does this guy really have to compete right now compared to a guy like Ramon Tavares, who's a young prospect, 1-0 in the UFC, 30 years old in his prime, riding a bit of momentum, got a win over Sari City. Whatever you want to say about the decision, it was a close competitive fight. And City's a hard guy to beat, in my opinion. He's pretty well-rounded, pretty good frame for the division too. I just think Ramon Tavares is going to be the guy who's doing the extra sparring rounds, the extra rounds on the fucking Aerodyne bike at this point. Maybe like if Davy Grant were to show up and look like, I don't know, the version of himself, hell, that showed up against Marcos over a year ago, then I wouldn't mind him picking him. I think he's a really good underdog on this card, honestly. Like I always say, this isn't betting advice, but I think Davy Grant's a really good underdog because his skill set is really good. He's very tricky. He's got good power. He's got some grappling as well, and he's got submissions. I mean, he fucking inverted triangle Rafael Assunção. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. But Ramon Tavares, what he does possess, he's got a good frame for this division. He's got really nice boxing, and he's just got really good power, too. He seems very physical early, and I think that's going to be something that's going to kind of maybe edge him a decision here against Davy Grant. I can see Ramon Tavares being a little bit too much early in the first two rounds, just being a little bit too physical, a little bit too fast, a little bit too technical for the 38-year-old Davy Grant, at least for the first two rounds, because Ramon Tavares does tend to gas out a little bit. So I think this is probably going to be a Ramon Tavares decision win here. I think he's going to look good for the first two rounds, maybe even the first 1.5 rounds. But I think that third round, I think old man Davy Grant is going to start to work his way into this fight, and he's going to make it a really close fight in that third round. But I think I'm going to go with Ramon Tavares here, winning a 29-28 decision. I'm just not sure how Davy Grant's going to look, so I don't want to pick him. But I do like him as the underdog pick, for sure, because he's looked good against prospects before. Moving up to women's flyweight, Miranda Maverick versus Jamie Lynn Horth. Guys, I'm going with Miranda Maverick over Jamie Lynn Horth. Miranda Maverick is much smaller, but I don't think that really matters. I don't think Jamie Lynn Horth is very good. She did not impress me in her last fight at all, even though she got the win. And Miranda Maverick just has a really nice grappling game. And I think she'll be able to take down Jamie Lynn Horth and control her for most of this fight. Land big shots from mount, from half guard, and probably just win a decision. She could honestly get a finish here because I don't see Jamie Lynn Horth getting up once she gets taken down. So she might accumulate some damage over the rounds here, but I'm definitely going to go with Miranda Maverick. She's looked okay on the feet too. I mean, nothing crazy good, but complements the grappling game really well, I would say. And despite Maverick being much shorter, the reach advantage, not that bad, so we can work with that. I also like the southpaw matchup for her. Yeah, I'm going to go with Miranda Maverick. Probably a decision. Could get a late TKO, though, just accumulating damage on Jamie Lynn Horth. I would be shocked if Jamie Lynn Horth wins, because I do not think much of her at all. I don't think a ton of Miranda Maverick, but I think she should beat a Jamie Lynn Horth pretty clearly, in my opinion. Is this featherweight? This is featherweight. Okay. Moving up to the featherweight division, Miles Johns is taking on Felipe Lima. Guys, I'm going with Felipe Lima. I fucking love Felipe Lima. I was singing this guy's praises when he came in his UFC debut, and I picked him as an underdog to beat Muhammad Niamov. And I said, dude, this guy is just, his skill set is so well-rounded, and he's so good. When you watch this guy strike, his speed, his technical ability, he's light years better than Miles Johns. I think at every facet of the sport. Now, Miles Johns does have some intangibles. He's a big, strong dude. and he is very powerful on the feet. Fair enough. But I think Felipe Lima is just outright better. He's got a good takedown. He's got submission skills. And on the feet, he is going to be eons faster than Miles Johns. Maybe Miles Johns can crack him, land a big shot. I don't know. I think a lot of Felipe Lima. I think he's really good. He's one of my favorite prospects that we have right now. And I was really impressed with his performance against Mohamed Niamov, who's a big, powerful guy, strong grappling, and really good striking as well. And he went out there and kind of had Mohamed Niamov looking like he was fighting two men at the same time. It was pretty impressive, that performance. Uh, and now with a full camp, or at least a semblance of a full camp, I think because Miles Johns was scheduled to fight Cody Garbrandt like a month or two ago. So yeah, they've known about this fight for a little while because this fight got made like right after that fight got canceled. So they've had some time. Felipe Lima's had some time to prepare. I think he's going to put on a sick performance here. Felipe Lima, kind of a smaller featherweight for sure, but I'm going to trust in just the speed advantage, the technical ability of Felipe Lima to get himself a win here over Miles Johns. I think probably a decision. I could see 30-27, honestly, because Miles Johns is a guy who kind of gasses out as well. Felipe Lima doesn't really gas out, but he does. His speed is so high that it does. You can kind of start to see it slow down a little bit. But Miles Johns, I've seen him look exhausted. So I could see a Felipe Lima 30-27, honestly. If Miles Johns wins, I mean, Miles Johns is a guy I've not been high on. If he wins this fight, dude, credit to you, because this is by far your hardest matchup, easily. Ooh, freak fight. We've got some fucking freaks. Moving up to featherweight, Sean Woodson is taking on Fernando Padilla. Guys, how are we looking? I kind of want to pick Fernando Padilla here against Sean Woodson. I have not been a guy who's particularly high on Sean Woodson as a prospect, despite he has a nice record. He's put together a nice streak for himself. But I've never thought that much of him. He's just a guy who frame bullies people in a light division with decent boxing. That's kind of all I've ever kind of seen from him, and that's all I've ever really thought of him. My thing here is, I don't. What happens when Sean Woodson doesn't have 19 inches of reach on the guy he's fighting? What happens if Sean Woodson's fighting a guy who's also the size of a grown human adult? You know what I'm saying? I think Sean Woodson's greatest weapon is like, yeah, he has really nice boxing, but it's the fact that he is built like a fucking freak for this featherweight division. I mean, 6'2" at 145. What the fuck is that? But Fernando Padilla is matching him. He's matching his freak. He's 6'1" at 145. He's the younger guy, and I think Fernando Padilla has the more diverse striking skill set. I really like his kicks. And when we break down, I'm going to break down some of their wins here. Sean Woodson beat Alex Caceres' unanimous decision, which I find interesting. I said in the breakdown of this fight for UFC St. Louis, I said, I'm going to go with Woodson, but it would not surprise me at all if Alex Caceres gives this guy hell. And he did. This fight was very close and very competitive. And Alex Caceres, I'm not saying he's bad or anything, but like if you're this crazy featherweight prospect, I feel like you get a clear win over Alex Caceres. And despite it says UD, that fight got very close. Charles Jourdain, split decision win over Charles Jourdain. I don't think it was a split decision though, really. I thought Woodson won clear. Jourdain's just too small for him. I mean, Jourdain's down at bantamweight now, and he looks incredible at bantamweight, but yeah, he's just far too small for a Sean Woodson. Dennis Bazooka's terrible. Luis Saldana had this guy eating canvas. Luis Saldana had this guy eating canvas. But he's an absolute baboon. So he threw the fight. Room temp IQ decisions by Luis Saldana. But he beat the shit out of Sean Woodson. I don't love that. I'm going to be honest. So I think despite him putting together a nice win streak, I think there's a couple of asterisks for me here. But Fernando Padilla, it's not like he's God's gift either. But this guy's got something that Sean Woodson does not have. He has a submission game, which I really like. Now, in this fight against Luis Puello, I saw some people picking this guy, Luis Puello. I was not I was not convinced by his victory over Robbie Ring. I picked Fernando Padilla. I think I picked him by sub too. I could be wrong, but I think I did. We rolled this guy up and subbed him in the first round. Now this guy actually Puello, he was like a Peruvian boxing champion or some shit like that. Something like that. I can't remember because this guy hasn't fought since. I haven't refreshed my memory on him specifically. But I think he was like a Peruvian boxing champion. He lost to Kyle Nelson, which I don't love, but Kyle Nelson was going on a little bit of a streak before he fought Steve Garcia. You know, knocked out Bill Algeo, went over Fernando Padilla, but this was over a year ago. Fernando Padilla has improved since this fight, I think. Beat Blake Builder, draw with Doo Ho Choi, and you saw how good Doo Ho Choi looked, even though Choi probably should have beat him in this fight. I don't mind the loss of Kyle Nelson nearly as much as I mind getting your ass whipped by Luis Saldana. Then he KOs Julian Erosa in round 1. And guys, you know, I talk a lot of shit about Julian Erosa, but man, he's tricky. He's tricky, man. You know, beats Hakeem Dawodu, beats Ricardo Ramos, beats C-Rod. Like, Julian Erosa is a tricky guy, so to go out there and knock him out in a minute 40, I like that. I think I'm going with Fernando Padilla here. I like that he has a submission game. And I just kind of like I think he's got more weapons to work on Sean Woodson. I like his kicks. I think his hands are decent. And I like his submission game. And as an underdog, I think I'm going to take him. And it's not giving Sean Woodson a disgusting frame advantage either. No, it's not giving Fernando Padilla a frame advantage either. But I think the kicks will help negate the fact that there's not a giant frame advantage for Fernando Padilla. I'm going to go with Padilla. I think he's going to win a decision here. I think this is going to be a pretty competitive fight, obviously. I think the line is right, being close. And I understand why Sean Woodson's the favorite. But I'm going to lean Padilla. Fuck it. Give you an underdog pick there. I'm going to go with Padilla. I think he's going to be able to outstrike Woodson in moments. Maybe get him in some positions where he can maybe go for a submission. And win a decision, like 29-28. Moving up to lightweight. Joel Alvarez versus Drakkar Klose. Guys, you know I love Joel Alvarez. I think this guy's sick. Speaking of being a freak frame bully, this guy is huge at lightweight. 6'3", 77 inches of reach at lightweight is fucking ridiculous, dude. And I'm going to pick Joel Alvarez to win. But I do want to say, this line is incredibly disrespectful. Because Drakkar Klose, dude, he's good. Like he's not bad. Like, this guy's really well-rounded. Well, not really well-rounded, but he's good everywhere. He doesn't really have a serious deficit of skill in the striking or in the grappling. He's pretty solid everywhere. Like, he's a solid fighter. Joel Alvarez, though, I mean, he's going to have just this monstrous frame over Drakkar Klose on the feet. I mean, he's going to be punching him from fucking 20 yards away. The only way I can see Klose winning this is he needs to get takedowns. And Joel Alvarez can be taken down. However, that is easier said than done, because not only does Joel Alvarez have really nasty submissions. I mean, how many submission wins does this fucking guy have? He's got a lot, dude. Yeah, 17. Yeah, so maybe don't shoot with your head on the outside, Drakkar. But yeah, Alvarez has got really nasty submission skills. So shooting those takedowns and being in this guy's guard is going to be some fucking risky business. For sure. And on the feet, man, Joel Alvarez, he was looking very composed on the feet against a very dangerous Elvis Brenner. He wasn't overextending himself. He wasn't going crazy. He was just popping him. He would see an opening on Brenner and he'd throw a straight shot and it would just land. He looked really good in the Brenner fight. He looked very patient and very composed. And I think if he fights like that against Drakkar Klose, I think it's problems. Because Joel Alvarez needs to leave himself open, I think, on the feet for Drakkar Klose to have success there. I also think Joel Alvarez can catch Drakkar Klose with a knee, because I don't particularly love Klose's entries on takedowns. I just think this is a very dangerous matchup for Drakkar Klose. Despite me thinking he's a pretty solid fighter everywhere, it's just the frame. He's got real power, too. He's got an insane reach. He throws nice straight punches. and he's got just a disgusting submission game. I mean, the only guy to beat Joel Alvarez recently has been Arman Sarukian. I mean, and you look at like his last couple of wins, Elvis Brenner, good win. DeCassi, good win. Tiago Moises, the licking he put on Tiago Moises was crazy. And Joe Duffy, yeah, but like his last like 5 wins, I mean, he's looked really good. I'm gonna go with Joel Alvarez here. I think he's gonna submit Drakkar Klose. I think Drakkar Klose is gonna go for a takedown. I think he's gonna get caught in a guillotine. I don't think Drakkar Klose is gonna be able to slam his way out of it. I think that might be curtains. That's kind of how I see this going. I see Drakkar Klose getting up in there on the feet, not liking what he's seeing. He's like, "Fuck this! I gotta take this guy down," and then he shoots into death. I think I'm gonna go with Joel Alvarez by submission here in this matchup. Moving over to lightweight, Michael Johnson versus Atman Azaitar. Oh, brother. You guys understand, right? You guys understand when you pick a Michael Johnson fight, you really don't know what's going to happen. Michael Johnson could go and beat John Jones for the heavyweight title right now. But he would lose in a street fight to an IKEA furniture salesman. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a perfect representation of Michael Johnson right now. Just trading wins and losses. Oof, that's ugly. Yeah. But I think Atman Azaitar is pretty bad. His striking, I don't think his stand-up, as far as technical ability goes, is very good. But he does have insane power. He does have really good power. I think every single one of his wins is by KO. No. Okay, so he's got a little bit of diversity in the finishes, and he only has one win that is not a finish. But in his last 2 fights, he has been KO'd by Matt Frivola and Francisco Prado, respectively. He is 34. Michael Johnson's 38. But I think Michael Johnson is just a much better technical striker on the feet. He's much faster. I think defensively, he's a little bit more responsible. He has been grappling a little bit more, Michael Johnson, which I don't mind. I just don't trust the Michael Johnson chin very much. He was put out very badly against Diego Ferreira, but he's bounced back since then and got himself a win. This is a very scary fight to pick on. Like I would, if I were betting, I would stay the fuck away from this fight because I cannot trust Michael Johnson with one fucking Vietnamese dong out of my wallet. I do not, I do not trust him, bro. And Azaitar's got power, man. But I do think Michael Johnson's just technically a better fighter. I do. Like when Michael Johnson's on, he's light years better than this guy, I think. Now, in saying that, he's probably going to get chinned into oblivion. But I'm going to say Michael Johnson wins here. I'm going to say Michael Johnson gets himself a TKO over Atman Azaitar. Because Azaitar, for me, if he hasn't made any improvements to his striking defense, he kind of, when he gets windmilling shots, his chin is just sitting there. It's just sitting there. That's how Matt Frivola knocked him out. He was just wide fucking open in front of him, and he just got knocked the fuck out. And Michael Johnson, I mean, despite being old, he still does have some speed, and he still does have pop. So I'm going to go with Michael Johnson by TKO. Bold pick. We'll see. Moving up to light heavyweight, Navajo Sterling versus Tuco Tokos. Guys, I'm going to go with Navajo Sterling here over Tuco Tokos. I don't think Tuco Tokos is very good. Lost to Zhang Minyang and road to UFC as a giant favorite, by the way, which was surprising to me that he was a giant favorite over Minyang Zhang, but since then, he's beaten a bunch of nobodies as far as I'm concerned, and then he fought Omar Sy and got finished very quickly. I'm just going to trust in this Navajo Sterling guy. This guy's really dangerous. He's got really good power, good striking, big guy for the division. 79 inches of reach. He's got a lot of striking output. Now, he could get exposed in the grappling by a Tuco Tokos, but I'm going to say that he doesn't. I'm going to say that Navajo Sterling's just going to get it done here on the feet. Maybe Tuco Tokos can get a takedown and work some ground and pound. Could happen. Could see it. Because you never really know with guys with like records like this, 5-0. You don't really know. But I've seen nothing from Tuco Tokos that makes me think he can hang with this guy on the feet at all. And I don't think getting a takedown on this guy is going to be too free and easy. So I'm going to go with Navajo Sterling here. I think he's just going to get a TKO win over Tuco Tokos being the more technical and just much more dangerous striker. Um, Kind of similar to the Min Yang Zhang fight. Tuco Tokos was getting in there, getting scrappy with him on the feet, exchanging, but he just does not have the intangibles like a guy like a Min Yang Zhang or Navajo Sterling. He doesn't have that power to just really put a guy out. So when they're exchanging up against the cage or in the pocket, I'm just going to trust the guy, 27-year-old, huge guy, and he's shown some real power. So I'm going to go with Navajo Sterling here by TKO. Moving to the bantamweight, Adrian Yanez taking on the undefeated Daniel Marcos. Guys, I'm going with Daniel Marcos here. I have not been the biggest Adrian Yanez believer. Um, Adrian Yanez, huh? I picked him to lose against Rob Font, and I picked him to lose against Jonathan Martinez. But I did pick him to win Vinicius Salvador because Salvador's terrible. But when we look at his last 5 fights, a robbery decision over Davey Grant, a win over Tony Kelly, who sucks, got flattened by Rob Font, got his leg chewed off by Jonathan Martinez, and then he finished bum-ass Vinicius Salvador. You know, I don't love that. I just don't love those last 5 fights, to be honest. But Daniel Marcos, I mean, it's not exactly like he's the world's greatest fighter ever. You know, they have a similar opponent in Davey Grant. I honestly feel like, like I said, Davey Grant was robbed from in both of these fights. I think that I can't remember which one. I think the Grant Yanez fight was more of a robbery off the top of my head. Um, no contest with Arichi Lang, but he was beating the shit out of Arichi Lang. Beat up John Castaneda pretty good. But where I think Daniel Marcos can win this fight is just simply stylistically. Daniel Marcos is pretty good at keeping his range with his kicks. He's got really good kicks. Now, he doesn't have kicks like a Jonathan Martinez. He's not going to cripple you with him, but he does have nice low kicks. And he does throw decent straight punches where Adrian Yanez wins this fight, which he can do. I want this to be prefaced. He can win this fight. I can see it happening. Daniel Marcos cannot allow himself to get in a pocket exchange with Adrian Yanez because Adrian Yanez's best weapons are his hooks. Outright. He's got good power for this division, and he's got really nice hooks. So in the pocket, in an exchange, I could easily see him catching Daniel Marcos. Daniel Marcos throws a straight shot. Yanez slips, throws a big hook, lands on him. I could see it easily. Do I think it happens? I'm not so sure. Daniel Marcos has pretty good footwork, and he's pretty elusive on the feet, and he does keep space very well with his kicks. Another thing I want to mention here is Daniel Marcos has a pretty good jab. Nothing crazy, but he has a jab. Something that like a guy like Tony Kelly and Vinicius Oliveira, or Vinicius Salvador, sorry, don't have. Adrian Yanez does not deal with straight punches, especially jabs, particularly well. He eats a lot of them trying to get into the pocket to land his big shots. So I can see Marcos just peppering him with a jab, keeping him at space with kicks, and using his footwork to circle out if Adrian Yanez gets too close to an exchange in the pocket. I don't think Daniel Marcos will exchange with him in the pocket. If he does, it's a huge mistake because he doesn't have the hooks like Yanez does, in my opinion. I think Yanez is a better technical boxer in close for sure, and I do think he has more power in his hands for sure. But I think Daniel Marcos can win rounds in this fight. Like for me, Daniel Marcos is a minute winner, and Yanez is a moment winner, if that makes sense. Yanez can win a moment and land a big shot and hurt Marcos in the fight. But generally speaking, I think the more likely outcome is Marcos keeping himself safe and just kind of keeping Yanez at range, landing his kicks, landing his straight punches, trying to keep Yanez on the end of them and circling out as needed to avoid damage and danger. So I'm going to go with Daniel Marcos. I think he's going to win a decision. I think Adrian Yanez has a decent chance here, but I think the more likely outcome is a Marcos decision, if you ask me. Moving up to light heavyweight, Vitor Petrino taking on Dustin Jacoby. Guys, Dustin, dude, like I say this every time I see Dustin Jacoby fight, and Khalil Roundtree too. It makes me so sad to see where Dustin Jacoby's career has gone since being brutally fucking robbed by Khalil Roundtree. Since that robbery decision, look at poor Dustin Jacoby's career. It's so sad. It actually makes me fucking sad. Because, like, look at this. Look at the streak he was on before he gets robbed by Roundtree. Look at this. Look at the streak he's on before he gets robbed by Roundtree. This should be a fucking win. But since it's not, then we have to fight Azamat Murzakanov and Alonzo Minifield, dude. It makes me sad. I really like Dustin Jacoby. Do I think he wins this fight? No. Do I think he's better than Vitor Petrino? Honestly, yes. Technically, I do think he's better than Vitor Petrino, but Dustin Jacoby's chin, I think, is just cooked, guys. I don't think he's got the chin anymore. I think he's a better kickboxer technically, easily. But Vitor Petrino is just kind of a brick shithouse with insane power, you know? And a guy with, I mean, how many guys with insane power has Dustin Jacoby fought in his last 5 fights? I mean, I'm not going to say Dominic Reyes has insane power, but he's known for the knockout. Minifield has insane power. Murzakanov has insane power. Roundtree has good power as well. I mean, the guy's chin is taking a beating. Not by Khalil Roundtree, though. Roundtree barely fucking touched him. I know Vitor Petrino lost to Anthony Smith, which is a fucking disgustingly horrific loss, but, you know, I don't think he's going to lose. I don't think he's going to stick his head in a guillotine again. I don't think he's that stupid, guys. Tyson Pedro was a shit fight. He looked like shit against Tyson Pedro. Modestas Bukauskas knocked out Bukauskas. Bukowski's a pretty tough guy, but he's a bit chinny, but it was a good one. Prachniow sub. That's actually underrated. I think this is his best one. Prachnio's a hard guy to get down on top of and submit, honestly, I think. Turkauj was a shit fight. Made a ton of mistakes in this fight. Looked terrible. But he keeps winning. Unless he's fighting the great Anthony Smith. But I think Jacoby's chin is just cooked. I think Jacoby, if these guys were prime for prime having a kickboxing match, I think Jacoby would style on him. I really do. He's really good on the feet. He is. But he just can't seem to take a shot anymore. And Vitor Petrino does have the takedown as well. Now, granted, Vitor Petrino does make some mistakes in his grappling. You saw it in the Turkauj fight, but he's improved a little bit since then, because then in the Prachniow fight, he did look much better in the grappling. I'm going to go with Vitor Petrino. I think he's going to get a TKO win over Dustin Jacoby. I think Jacoby will probably be winning, and then he'll just get caught by a big shot, and he'll get wobbled, and he'll get finished. I hate to say it, but it's just kind of what I think is going to happen here. Moving up to flyweight, Manel Kape taking on Bruno Silva. This is a sick fight. I'm stoked for this fight. Manel Kape's, this line's kind of wide, huh? Minus 400 for Manel Kape. He's coming off a loss, fellas. I'm picking him to win. Just because I think bigger guy, good range, maintains it very well, good knees. Bruno Silva's good too. Very fast, explosive striker. I just think Manel Kape, I just don't think Bruno Silva is going to show Manel Kape something on the feet that he hasn't seen before. You know what I mean? Manel Kape is a kickboxer, plain and simple. Bruno Silva does have a takedown. He does have some submission skill as well. But largely, he's a guy who wants to get it done on the feet. Now, I didn't love either of these guys' last performances. I picked Makayev to beat Manel Kape by decision, which he did. But Manel Kape did injure himself in that fight, so I can't read into that too much. And I picked Bruno Silva to beat Cody Durden by TKO, which he did. But the difference here is, he was getting his ass beat by Cody Durden. He was getting his ass taken by Cody Durden before landing a big shot, which I don't love. I just think this fight's largely going to be contested on the feet. And in a pure striking contest, which I assume this is going to be, I'm just going to favor Manel Kape because he's been there against higher level strikers in his career. I mean, when you look at this guy's introduction into the UFC, right? He knocks out Kai Asakura, who just fought for the belt last week. And then in his UFC debut, he is fighting Alejandro Pantoja. Takes him to a decision. Then he fights Mateus Nicolau. Another good fighter. KO's Ode Osborne easy. KO's Zalga Zumagulov easy. Not a lot of people do this to Zumagulov, by the way. Beats David Dvorak, which I think is a good win. Beats a scrappy Felipe Dos Santos. Then loses a decision to Muhammad Makayev. In a fight that he did kind of get injured in. But I'm just going to trust in Manel Kape over 3 rounds to just put a better performance together in the striking than a Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva can land some good shots, maybe hurt Kape. But Kape does have a solid chin. And he's been in there against way better competition in my in my honest opinion. I mean, he's fighting our current flyweight champion in his fucking debut and taking him the distance. I'm gonna go with Manel Kape. I think he's gonna win decision over Bruno Silva. Moving up to the co-main event of the evening at featherweight, Cub Swanson's taking on Billy Quarantillo. Guys, I'm going with Cub Swanson over Billy Quarantillo. I know he's 41. I know he's ancient. He's older than your granddad, but I don't think Billy Quarantillo's that good. I just never have. I think he's got a good pace, really good pressure. He leaves himself open on the feet sometimes, though. Grappling, sometimes he can make mistakes. And despite Cub Swanson being a 9,000-year-old man, in his last two fights, this fight with Andre Fili was very close. He beat Hakeem Dawodu. Both of these guys beat Billy Quarantillo, in my opinion, free. That's kind of how I see this. I just think Swanson's a better striker than Billy Quarantillo, and Billy Quarantillo leaves himself open too much, I think. And it's not like Billy Quarantillo's a young guy either. Billy Quarantillo's last fight, Yusuf Zalal. I picked Zalal as the underdog to beat him. Damon Jackson, I think he fucking retired. I think Damon Jackson's retired now. So I think Cub Swanson's above a guy like Damon Jackson. He got flatline KO'd by Edson Barboza. Beat Alexander Hernandez at featherweight. So do we really care? And then lost to Shane Burgos in a UD. I think Cub Swanson, even though he's ancient, is better than a guy like a Hernandez and better than a guy like a Jackson. He's very good on the feet. He's as tough as an old leather boot. And he's just a better striker with more power, I think. Now, maybe Billy Quarantillo can get a takedown, get a submission, because Cub Swanson does have a bit of a weakness to the submission. But Billy Quarantillo kind of falls into this pitfall sometimes of wanting to be the entertaining guy. And he might just get caught in a firefight on the feet. And I could see that happening. And if that happens, I just think Cub Swanson's a little bit better. Maybe Billy Q, as the fight goes on, Cub Swanson's 41, he starts to slow down. Billy Quarantillo starts to put a pace together. But I don't know, dude. I don't know. I kind of just want to pick Cub Swanson. I'm going with Killer Cub. I think he wins the decision here. I think he's going to land the more powerful shots. I think he's going to be defensively more responsible on the feet. Yeah. I'm going to go with Cub Swanson. I hope he wins. I love Cub Swanson, so I hope he does. Closing out the card at welterweight, our main event, Colby Covington versus Joaquin Buckley. I'm going with Joaquin Buckley, but I want to say this right now. This line's disrespect. I'm being honest. I know Colby Covington's last fight was terrible. He looked awful. And that fight against Leon Edwards pissed me off so much because I picked Covington. And the reasons I picked Covington were proven to be exactly right when I watched Bilal Muhammad do what I said Covington could do to Leon Edwards and win the fucking belt. It pissed me off so much watching Covington just not fight like himself. I honestly thought he was injured going into that fight, just the way he looked. He looked very off. It's either he looked very off or he's very washed. And I'm not sure which. If he was hurt, then he's going to look better than 220 in this fight. If he was hurt in that Edwards fight going into it, he's going to look better than plus 220 in this fight, I think. If he's brutally washed and that's just how he fights now, he is probably going to look plus 220. But Joaquin Buckley has put together a really nice streak for himself lately. Just KO'd Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, which isn't an easy thing to do. Beats a Nursultan Ruzaboev, who's a gigantic frame monster, but I don't think Ruzaboev's that good. Not as good as a lot of people think. Beats Vicente Luque, which, hey, Luque's back. Not that bad of a win now. And then Morono, bum. Taking Fiallo to the second round, I don't love. Bum. Is that the end of his... Yeah, that's the end of his welterweight streak. So this is his streak. Pretty decent. Mostly these three wins, though, are what we're looking at, which are good wins. Covington recently, I mean, he doesn't fight like ever. He's 36. I think he was injured in this fight, or he's brutally washed. Beats George Masvidal by out-grappling him. And then loses to Usman. Beats Woodley, loses to Usman. So obviously the level of competition for Covington's higher, but this is spread out much more. I mean, he's fighting like once a year. You know, could I see Covington putting a pace on Buckley. No, I can't. Like, just like the image of his last fight, I just can't see it. Especially because Buckley is way more physically imposing. I know it sounds crazy, but he's more physically imposing than a guy like Leon Edwards. I think he's way stronger than a guy like Leon Edwards. His center of mass is much lower too, so it's going to be harder to get a takedown on him. And Joaquin Buckley does have a bit of grappling himself. Um, and I think Colby Covington's going to feel the shots on the feet from Buckley. Now, Buckley has been a bit chinny, but that was mostly at middleweight. So I don't think we can read into that too much. And it's not like Covington has any type of power at all. It's just, I think Buckley's going to be too much for Covington at this point in his career. I think Buckley's going to go out there and get in his face because Buckley doesn't really have to respect the power coming back his way. And he's got a big reach advantage too. And my thing is, if he's able to find a kill shot on Stephen Thompson, he can probably find it on Colby Covington, who makes a lot more mistakes on the feet, especially if Covington's skittish like he was in that Edwards fight. And he hasn't fought in a long time either. He's 36. Like, if the Covington of old were to show up, like the guy who fought like Usman the first time or the second time were to show up, I honestly wouldn't mind picking him here over Joaquin Buckley. Pretty free and easy. But it's just, dude, this Edwards performance, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Now, I can see as this fight gets deeper, Covington starts to put it together. Because Buckley, has he had a main event? I don't think he has he? Off the top of my head? No. No. Yeah, no. So maybe as the fight gets deeper, Covington can start to put it together on Joaquin Buckley. Could easily happen. But Covington's going to probably have to go through hell for the first couple of rounds for that to happen. Because Joaquin can go 3 rounds hard. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Joaquin Buckley, honestly. I actually think he's going to TKO Colby. I really do, because Colby hasn't really... I think... God damn, it's been a long time since Covington's fought. It's been a whole year. Yeah, I think Buckley's going to find the shot on him. I really do. Reach advantage, power advantage. Covington makes way more mistakes on the feet than a guy like Wonderboy Thompson. If we're able to find shots on him, I think Buckley can find shots on Covington. I don't know if Covington's wrestling is going to be super effective against Buckley because Buckley's low center of mass, very physically strong early, and he's got some wrestling skills of his own. So I think it's just going to be hard early. Like I said, I do think the line's a little bit off. I think this line should be a little bit closer. Because Covington has insane 5-round experience against a really high level of competition. But I'm going to lean Buckley here. I think he's on right now. He's in his prime, putting together a legacy streak here. I think he's going to keep it rolling. I think I'm going to go with Joaquin Buckley by like a round 2 TKO. I think he's going to catch Covington with a big shot. I think he's going to corral Covington up against the cage. Covington's not going to have he's not going to circle out. He's going to get caught with a big shot by Joaquin Buckley and hurt bad. Yeah. That's it for my UFC Tampa predictions, fellas. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it a ton. If you're new, subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.